Thanks for joining the channel and checking out the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and give me a comment or two if you can. I decided to install AIRLIFT air suspension on the back of my truck. I want to tell you why. I put the airbags. AIRLIFT is the company. I also went with a CRADLE for the airbags so that they will maintain the articulation so the suspension can travel like it's supposed to and not be locked in place. And if you're interested in these parts, you can also pick them up on Amazon. I have a link to all of them in the description below. But about the air suspension, I'm using AIRLIFT, Air Ride. I'll put a link here or a description of it. It's probably in the title. The type of airbags I'm using. And I'm going to show you a few clips of the installation because I did a little bit different installation than is recommended or at least given by the manufacturer. What we want to take a look at is what makes this a better air suspension system than the standard one and why you can get more articulation out of it. And I'm going to show you. I think this will explain it a little bit easier. If you look at the upper bracket here, and then you've got this lower bucket, and the airbag will be mounted to the upper bracket but not to the lower bracket, and this bucket is what the airbag can go down and sit into, and it's of course mounted to the top one, so as you get articulation the airbag will come out. Otherwise it's sitting in this lower bucket the entire time. That's it. Pretty simple. But that is so that you'll get all the articulation you've ever had in your truck, 4x4, whatever it is that you're putting the air suspension in, but also have the adjustability of the suspension. So if you look at the truck now, the front and the back are level. So as I measure the front and I measure the back, they're actually level now, whereas I had about a 3-inch drop in the back before. And let's take a look at that airbag in here to give the camera a second to adjust. There we go. So you still have a leaf spring and you've got an airbag system. And then the bottom of the airbag system here is that bucket that you just saw us take a look at how that installation was happening. And so this airbag can come out of the bucket and drop back in under high articulation times. And it's a pretty easy setup. It's about that install for me, first time I've ever done it. So it was I spent about 3 hours doing it just to I'll give you some ideas of why, but it's probably a 2-hour job if you can get the vehicle off the ground a little higher. Using a lift would make it a lot better, make it a lot easier to do this. And let me give you a couple of reasons why. So if you look at the back here, so let me go look under here. So this is where the airbag is located, up under there. If you have the tire off, when you take the tire off, it gives you a lot more access to that. But you need to be able to get the truck up high enough so that the axle can drop down. So you can't lift it up by the axle, you need to lift it by the frame. So on a Ford F-150, there's a good spot right back here to lift the truck up on either side from the frame in the back, and that gives you everything else that can be free. You either need 2 jacks, really tall jack stands. You need both actually, a jack that can go up really high and jack stands that can go up really high to hold the truck up. I didn't have jack stands to go up high enough, so basically I got the truck up on one side, did the install, and then did the other side, but never took the tire off the ground, so that if it ever fell and I'm underneath it, it would be, I'm not going to recommend doing that because it's, anyways, it was my choice. Anyways, the next part of this install was where are you going to put the air lines, and do you want to use an air compressor system? So they sell an air compressor system, and that allows you to adjust the air travel in the cab. And I thought to myself, it's not a set it and forget it completely, but I'm going to set it up like this and I'm going to leave it like that because that's the weight I carry. And then if I tow a trailer, I don't mind pumping it up a little more for that trailer, if it's a really heavy trailer. But basically I'm just going to leave it like this and then adjust as necessary when I add a lot more weight. And I'm not super worried about that. I bring a air unit with me, so I'll show you that in a second. About that, let's look at how do I pump these up? Well, I do it the same way I do my tires. So I bring along with me this ARB air compressor. Now it comes in so it's a mobile unit, comes with a small air tank, connections for your battery, and then an on and off switch here, and it's a dual compressor setup. And this one works fantastic. Air hoses in here. I've got different connectors for different types of valve stems, if I want to blow up an air mattress, anything like that. And these are really fast. They work really well. They also make these for under the hood, so you can mount this under the hood somewhere. You can actually take it out of here and mount it under the hood. Real expensive though, so there are less expensive options. This is the one I choose to use, and I can use it, connect it to my battery in the cab, under the cap, or I can connect it under the hood. And under the cap is just on this side, and I've got my battery right here, and that is for my what we call a house battery, and that can run it. That's pretty easy to do. That setup works really well, and I can also connect it to the battery under the hood. And so I set up on the license plate here, you'll see sort of a standard license plate, but these, if I can get a close-up of that, this is where if I take these off, that's your air nozzle for the left and the air nozzle for the right. And it's important to keep those separate. Up on a couple of corners, that makes me consider, why wouldn't you just have one valve to inflate the airbags? And of course, that's another question I've been asked, and I see a lot of examples where people do just that. One valve, and you can fill up both airbags at the same time and make sure that they have exactly the same pressure, rather than using, you know, a tire gauge or something like that. And me going around these corners will give you an indication of why you don't want to do that. One, it's very dangerous. And the reason why it's dangerous, if you think about when I go around one of these corners and it puts pressure on one airbag, okay, that airbag gets pressure, it wants to deflate. So it's going to fill up the opposite airbag with the equal pressure. And what's going to happen is when I go around a corner to the left, which I'm doing now, you can imagine that left-hand airbag is getting pressure, the right-hand one is filling, and what's going to happen is it's going to tilt the truck over the way I don't want it to go. So what it'll do is make your truck lean more. It'll put a lot more strain on your sway bars if you have sway bars in the back. If you do not have sway bars in the back, it's going to tilt the truck over in the back, and the front sway bars are going to try and keep it level, and it'll put a lot more tension on those front sway bars. A lot more strain on the truck, a lot more strain on the suspension, and it is unsafe. And if you're towing a trailer like that, the trailer is also going to put pressure on that airbag, and it's going to put more pressure, and it's going to fill out of their airbag even more, and you're likely to lose control of the vehicle and jackknife the trailer. Worst case scenario, you could roll the truck. That's why you don't do it. So I wanted to cover one more thing about the air compressor system. So a lot of people ask, hey, why can't I use the air compressor system that they sell to inflate the airbags to also inflate my tires? So I'd have one air compressor for the entire system. And the shortest answer is you can't. But the long answer is, well, you can, and a lot of people do. I would say don't. And the reason I would say don't is the compressor that they give you is not meant to be running, they call it like a duty cycle. So the duty cycle on that compressor is not meant for blowing up tires. And it's a small volume compressor, so it does not it take a long time to fill your tires. That's a simple thing. You're probably gonna burn it out if you do that. And I've seen a lot of people showing how to do it, all of that kind of thing. You have to buy a few valves to isolate the compressor so that you can just blow up your tires or just blow up the airbags. And so it's a little bit of work each time you want to do it. You can get really complex with it. If you bought a better compressor, say like one of the ARBs or something better that's meant for a duty cycle of blowing up tires, and use that for your airbag, you could do that. It would be some work because you need to put the valves in to isolate both the airbags and when you're blowing up the tires, and then you'd probably want an in-cab controller to run all that, and so it would be complicated. But yes, you could do it. And I say again, the short answer is no, don't. Just do a separate system. It's a lot simpler. A $2,000 question. I say $2,000 question because the springs I was quoted to put on the back were about $1,700 plus a couple of $100 to install them, or I could do it myself. And then another option would be putting lifting blocks in, and that would be somewhere between 30 and $50. So third option is the AIRLIFT, which you need to take the spring pack apart and put an AIRLIFT in. It's the correct way to do it anyway. That's sort of the third option, and maybe the middle ground for expense. This system cost me $500, just under $500, with all the parts, and I'll list those below. You know, I list them below because I could not find those buckets. I had to find a shop that actually had them because I knew they existed, and they're like, oh yeah, they had them right on the shelf. I'm going to put a link in here so you can go find them yourself really quickly. The air suspension is pretty easy to find, but that would give you that articulation option, and about $500, and then install it yourself, you're done. If you buy all of it from a authorized installer, for the next couple of months you can get $75 off on the air suspension and $75 off on their compressor system. And that might cover half of the installation and could make it worth it for you. Could be a good way to go. I highly recommend these. I'm super impressed. It much better than I thought it would be, honestly. I thought it would be okay. I thought I might have to refill the bags, things like that, and it just hasn't been the case. And the ride quality has improved over stock, so it's huge thumbs up on this one. If you're changing your load capacity, you're going to pull a trailer once in a while, or you're going to add cargo to the back like I am with the camping gear, you need that option to change the suspension out and make it ride right, and this is just the way to do it. It's awesome. Question is, what's yeah the inevitable question is, what suspension components am I using on my truck? And I have shown that in previous videos, but I should mention it here. I have the Fox 2.0 coilovers in the front. That gives me about, as I measured it, 2¼ inch lift in the front, and I did nothing to the rear. The rear is completely bone stock, so no lift, no springs, no added anything. So I just did the front with that OEM with no weight in the back. The truck was level. It was actually completely level. I didn't expect it to be 100% level. I expected still to have about a 1/4 inch higher in the back, but it was dead on level front to rear. Adding all the weight, so I've added the RSI shell, I've added the deck system and all my camping gear, battery, refrigerator, and all of that. Adding 800 pounds to the truck in the back will lower the suspension, so I'm about 3.5 inches lower in the back without the airbags, and the airbags brought it right back up to level, so it's 100% level right now, which is perfect. And that took 40 psi in the airbags. 40 psi. That's be like 39 to 40, depending on your tire pressure gauge. And that's my suspension setup. To this location, this is out in Livermore, California, and just down here, what you really can't see is there's a lake, and it's Lake Del Valle. And it's just gorgeous here. People fly their remote control gliders here. Peaceful place to come up, and people hang out, bring their lunches, things like that. Just a gorgeous little spot. If you follow this road down, you end up right at the lake entrance. You can follow it around on the opposite side of this lake. I do my hike every day up to the dam and around part of the lake. It's a great location.